Hi, and welcome back to a belated episode of Speculative Presents, talking about the movie Need for Speed. Now, I probably should have done this a little earlier. Things just got busy and working a lot. So, you know, uh, basically, the movie is supposed to be somehow based around the video game series, of which I have even all the way back to the original Need for Speed. Uh, and really, it comes up short in a lot of departments. Most departments, in fact. Now, I will say two things I'll give the movie credit for. The opening race sequence and the final, the very end of the movie, basically the beginning and the end of the movie, actually do have kind of a Need for Speed feel to them. Uh, Everything else in between feels like a gigantic waste of time. Uh, Basically, it's not. It's really, in the end, it's a revenge flick. Uh, your two main characters are Dino and Toby. And what bothers me is that they try and set Dino up as the villain, but he only does two things that are villainous through the entire movie, and it seems very forced. One, during a race that's shown early in the movie, it's not the very first race, but it's a little bit later in the movie. Uh, One of Toby's friends, Pete, gets killed. It really feels like a very forced moment because they felt that they needed a villain. And the reason they probably felt like they needed a villain was because, honestly, Toby's not a very likable character for the main character. He's very disappointed. Very disappointing. In fact, the first time you see Toby and Dino, between the two characters, Dino comes off as the more likable character. Toby's gas station and mechanic shop is going under. Dino gives him an opportunity to finish work on this very expensive, Shelby Super Snake, one of the last ones that Carroll Shelby built. Gives them an opportunity and says that he knows they're not doing well, so he'll share the profit when he sells the car, if they help him do it. All his friends are like, "No, man, that guy's a jerk," without any explanation as to why everybody hates Dino. And that's the biggest point is, yeah, everybody seems to hate Dino, but there's no explanation as to why. So he actually comes along helping in that respect, comes off as a nicer guy at the beginning than Toby does. That honestly really bothered me. Except not that Dino coming off as a better guy bothers me, but, when you're not setting up your main character to be a particularly likable person, when this is the time, it's one thing if you have a despicable main character, and that's how they're supposed to be, but he is still the character you're supposed to be rooting for. And he just comes off as kind of a jerk. Okay, Pete dies. He goes to jail, despite the fact that Dino was there. Dino manages to get away, and obviously there's no police work involved because everybody just says, "Oh, there were two cars there," so people are assuming it was Toby and Pete. I was like, yeah, so there's no police forensics that indicates any other cars were there at the scene of the crime. Oh, well, they said, those cars they were racing in, they were all reported as stolen. Yeah, that doesn't seem very contrived and forced. No, police would never investigate that, right? Yeah. Let's put it like, police are portrayed as idiots in this movie, to say the least. They go to Detroit to pick up one of Toby's friends. When Toby gets out of prison, he wants to go race in this race called the De Leon, so he can beat Dino, and that's how he's going to get revenge on Dino, is by beating him in a race. If Dino was in fact such a bad guy as to kill him, which he is, but that's really going to be your revenge, beating him in a race. It's honestly, in the end, the whole racing thing comes down and across as really petty. Because there's a narration at the beginning. Michael Keaton plays this character called the Monarch, who basically runs what looks like a pirate radio station dedicated to illegal street racing from his home. That's not what they say in the movie, that's just how it looks. He's never shown outside of this one little room with, computer and some sound equipment and that. And to be perfectly honest, everything he does there, I could do at home on my own computer. So it's not like they're pulling anything big out of their hat. But he gives us an opening narration that Dino became a professional racer, but in his mind, he always thought Toby was the better racer. So if Dino became a professional and Toby stayed, as a street level racer, doesn't their hatred towards Dino seem more petty and jealous than anything else? Dino was successful when Toby wasn't. Again, like I said, it comes down to it makes so Toby doesn't come off as a likable character. Then again, the other villainous thing that Dino does is about halfway through the movie, they seem to remember. Oh yeah, he's also in this movie very little. They seem to, at one point in the middle of the movie, they decide to, the monarch is talking about how he thinks he hears that, Dino's got this, this, all they call it is a Mustang in here, but really it's a Shelby Super Snake. I'm guessing they probably couldn't get the copyrights to use the name. I'm guessing Shelby's probably a little bit more stringent on their names, but, whatever reason. He hears that, he's driving this, this super Stang, if you will, or super snake, cross country to participate in there. Dino calls in on the air and says, "I'll give my Lamborghini Elemento to anyone who can keep him from getting to California, where the race starts." And that's the only other villainous thing he does in the entire movie. It really comes off as forced. It's like, okay, our main character's not particularly likable, so we're just going to have to try and make our villain character despicable, and it doesn't work. I will give it a little bit of praise in that the cars look great, and they were very big on saying that this is all practical effects. They're not using CGI, and the stunt work comes off as very good. I will give it that much credit. The director, sorry, I can't think of his name right now, but he's a stunt coordinator, so he does know how to shoot stunt scenes to make them look good, and he did do that. But the script is terrible, terribly cliched, and I'm actually somebody who I like to watch other people's reviews of movies, at least movies that I intend to watch just for my own information. And one person said this, and I do have to completely agree with it. And I have to completely agree with. This felt like a made-for-DVD movie that somehow got a theatrical release. This doesn't feel like a big budget Hollywood movie. Here's something. Now, granted, when he's going to California to participate in this race called the De Leon, he drives across the country, including a stop-off. He starts in New York, is going to drive to California. I believe it's San Francisco, if I remember correctly, is where the De Leon is, where he's supposed to meet everyone there. He drives cross country with stop-off in Detroit, so he has to head a little north, then heads down, I'm presuming across Iowa, and in through Nebraska, because they actually show some of the Nebraska highway and crossing into the state. And that's interesting because I live in eastern Nebraska, and it's like, okay, I know that interstate. They actually did, when they say they're in a city, they actually did take the time to shoot in that city, so I guess they were going for as much realism as possible. I'll give them a little bit of faint praise for that as well. But there are certain things that really aren't explained, and one of the biggest ones is that while they are literally racing across the country to get to the De Leon in time, Toby's two buddies are in a truck kind of following them across the country, yet there's one point where, they claim, I believe they're just outside of Detroit, at least the way they make it look, and they say they're going to have to keep driving all the way through. They're not going to be able to stop for, okay. They even fill up the car with gas on the move. They pop out, hang out the window, get gas and all that. Goofy stuff you would probably expect in a movie like this. But then, he takes off. He's driving. He's doing 100 and probably. I'm guessing he's probably would have to. The distance they have to travel, he'd probably be having to average a little over 150 miles an hour. So, however, later. I think if you've seen the trailer, you see the screenshots of them being picked up by the helicopter, and then they're dropped down right next to the truck that his buddies are driving. So apparently this truck that they pretty much left in the dust is somehow now ahead of them on the interstate, waiting for them to be dropped off by the helicopter. How fast was that truck going? Yeah. Honestly, this movie really. Granted, I went in with low expectations, so I can't say I was disappointed in this movie because I didn't have high expectations either. When I saw the trailer and heard Kid Cudi making a "Yo Mama" joke, I was like, wow, that doesn't come off as dated or dumb. Yeah, and honestly, I didn't mind his character until the very end when he gets arrested for stealing a military helicopter. And then his character, once he's in jail, becomes this very irritating character. Up until that point, he was kind of another one of the goofy sidekicks like the other guys. But then at the end, it's like, okay, you could have made him. He was kind of likable, and now he's just completely annoying. Ugh. I feel sorry for and I know he's a rapper, and it's not necessarily one of my favorite rappers, but I feel sorry for his fans because I know there was a lot of people who said they were going to go see this movie just because he was in it. Like, wow, that's. I feel sorry for that, and I feel sorry for him for doing it. But whatever. He got his paycheck, so I shouldn't say I feel sorry for somebody for being in a movie and getting paid for it. But it's like, wow, that was really dumb. Overall, though, if I had to give this, I would say I'd give this a 2 out of 5, just because, as I said, the effects were good. The actual driving, there's a few moments where the driving is questionable. Like, for example, there's a scene where during the actual De Leon, they're supposed to be racing up this road, and they pass a bus. And you can see as the cars move past it, it's like, this bus is obviously not going very fast. It's a children's school bus. And they basically pass at the speed of. I was like, I thought these cars were supposed to be doing well over 100 miles an hour. Clearly, the bus is doing about 25, and they're doing maybe 40. So yeah, it's like, okay. Other than there's a couple of moments like that, but the other one, as I said earlier, is the cops are treated like idiots. They make a stopover in Detroit to pick up one of his friends, and. He starts tooling around town being chased by a single cop. So apparently there's only one cop in all of Detroit. That may explain their crime rate, but and then at the very end, I said the very last race actually does feel very Need for Speed, but there's a couple of moments where cops do things again that are very, you have a group of 6 cars that are street racing. And you hear very clearly over the radio. Now, no one has died. I think early on, a couple of the cars have crashed, but not into civilians. There hasn't been civilian casualties during this. They're actually very careful to avoid that throughout the entire movie. So they have the cops announce over the radio, lethal force has been approved. I was like, for street racing? I don't care how expensive these cars are and how fast these guys are going. If they haven't killed anyone, I guarantee lethal force is not going to be approved. You don't stop someone from killing somebody who might kill somebody by killing them first. It doesn't work that way. That I think was probably the thing that just infuriated me beyond all belief. But overall, though, like I said, I'd give this movie probably a 2 out of 5 for the things it did get right. The stunts, the visuals were good. As I said, the city locations were nice. And let's see, one other thing that the music was forgettable. I didn't even notice the score through most of it. The cast, the acting was subpar. It was adequate. It was monumentally adequate, and nothing more. Let's see. That really, for a movie that I think could have had potential. I know a lot of other reviewers have been saying, this is taking off of a racing game. There's no plot. Well, some of the games have had story. The original Underground, Underground 2, the first Most Wanted, Need for Speed Carbon. Those actually did have stories. They may not have been great stories, but they were stories. So it's not like it's not like they didn't have something they could have drawn on. And in fact, him driving across the country made me think that it was related to Need for Speed The Run, which is literally a Cannonball Run style race. When you realize, no, the race has absolutely nothing to do with him going across the country. I mean, he has to get to the race. The race itself was almost secondary, you know, to him driving across the country. And so that's like, oh, that's okay, whatever. But overall, like I said, like I said, it's hard to call it disappointing just because, I didn't go in with high expectations, but still, at the same time, they could have done so much better. This really is, the DVD bin. This will, I of course, just like any other Hollywood movie, it'll be $20 when it comes out on DVD, or $25 on Blu-ray, but this should have been one of those straight to DVD releases, and it got a theatrical release without, that really, I don't think anyone can justify getting a theatrical release. But, this is actually the first video in a series I'm going to be doing on car movies. And I'm not just going, I'll be doing some discussions on some more popular movies, whether you love them or hate them, like the Need for Speed series, or not Fast and Furious series, excuse me, Need for Speed video games. I'll be doing reviews on some of those too, including the original Need for Speed video game that started it all. But I'm doing all, and not just American car movies either. I'm actually a big fan of some Asian car movies, and I'll be taking a look at some of those. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that, a little bit of a change up of pace. So said Need for Speed, I would say definitely give it a pass in theaters. If you want to rent it, on Netflix when it comes out on DVD, I won't judge you for that, but it might be worth an amusement. But if you're a car person and you're hoping to get something out of this, I would say I would be disappointed. I will say this one more thing, they do one thing almost correctly, and that's when I hate it when car movies do what I like to call tech talk. They will spout a bunch of information, usually not complete nonsense about a car, and it will be completely inaccurate. This one, there's only one moment of tech talk, and it was accurate to a point, up to the point where the character says, the character asks Toby to pop the hood on the souped-up Mustang, and spouts off some stuff about it, looking at it, supercharger, blah blah blah, and then says only one thing that made me raise an eyebrow, and they said, and racing cams. I was like, well, you can't tell that thing has racing cams from there. You can assume that it does, but you can't see it by popping the hood on a Mustang. But that was probably the only offense in that particular area, so I'll give that one. It was better with tech talk than most car movies. So next time I'll actually be taking a look at. You've already seen my video for the Initial D live action movie, where I compared that to the manga and the anime series. Next, I'm actually going to be taking a look at another Japanese that's been a manga, an anime, as well as a live action movie, and that is Wangan Midnight. One of my personal favorites, even though I'll admit it's not particularly great. But, you'll see that next time. Until then, I'm Speculative Dude. That's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Speculative Dude, out.